Hello, my name is Kira. If you're new here, welcome. And if you're old here, yes, I'm going to do more table to screen reactions with Vox Machina, obviously. I'm just trying to get a lot of recommendations before I do another video of it. Which, thank you, you guys are sending in recommendations. But you all know that I'm kind of a storytelling person. That's what I kind of go after when I'm doing reaction videos, which is my usual content. And I'd kind of like to start including a few more videos about books, because that really is my area of expertise. So, here we go. I think a lot of us have been feeling pretty disappointed with a couple of authors recently. Obviously, there are some ones who have been doing stuff that is horrendous, and then there are some that have just been being like slightly disappointing. When one of your favorite authors turns out to either be horrendous or just slightly disappointing, it can be nice to find some books that are, like what they write, but not them anymore. So this is maybe first in a series of, hey, your fave is problematic. Here are some books that can replace their spot on your shelves. So this is going to be the Neil Gaiman edition, because that's easier for me. I've packed up a lot of my books already because I'm moving. But I've got, I think, like 14 books here that can scratch the itch in the facets of Gaiman's writing that I found were the most prominent. So here we go. For me, Neil Gaiman did become kind of a master of the craft when it came to fantasy, urban fantasy, even high fantasy at times. He really had a wide net, and he really just, he wrote a lot of really good books. But if you don't want to be reading his books anymore, that's totally understandable. I believe in death of the author, but, there's just some things that, I tried to pick up a book of his and it's just kind of like, ew. So, to start with, I'll try to hone in on what I think is closest to him. So this is kind of furthest from him, and then I'm going to try to get a little closer. But Gaiman often had some horror elements in his books, especially in his children's books for some reason. But so if you enjoyed the horror concept in his books, and you liked kind of the creepiness that he would imbue in his writing, one of the books that I would recommend is Carrion by Dan Simmons. And I would recommend Dan Simmons as a horror writer in general, but Carrion is probably his most celebrated work. And it is historical as well as modern day. I don't really want to give that much away, but it's definitely, it's if I can read the book, is the monumental epic of horror, dark fantasy, and intrigue, featuring a new author introduction by Dan Simmons, whatever. A lot of people say that he's their favorite author, horror author, I should say, and it is a vampire novel, but I think that it's very well done. It's very original. Obviously it's pretty lengthy, so Gaiman often wrote like lengthy books, so if you like being able to immerse yourself in a world for quite a long time, this is going to be a book that is both creative, a little creepy, and will probably give old concepts to you in a new way. So if that was what you enjoyed about Gaiman's writing, then Carrying Comfort by Dan Simmons, really recommend. Now, if you like kind of the same thing, but not as long, this is also, I think it's more geared towards children. So if you liked like Coraline or the Graveyard Book, this one's also fun because it's told from a different kind of perspective. It's The Girl from the Well by Chupeco. And she writes a lot of really great stuff, like The Bone Master, I think, is her other series that's really good. But this one in specific is, it's very much that if you enjoyed, like, especially I think the Graveyard Book, this one has the change in perspective, as in it's being told by the by kind of the Sadako of the book. So if you just enjoyed that creepy aspect of his writing, this one is also very fun, very creative. It plays a lot with the words, with putting certain words on like just one line and then messing around with that. It has some creative elements to the writing itself that is very fun. So if you liked the horror aspect, liked the creative horror aspect, but also don't want to do something as long as like Carrion Comfort, understandable. The Girl from the Well was a very quick read, but very enjoyable, and I did enjoy the change of perspective. It was just fun, and also the mystery throughout it that really ended up, I think it was pretty, I wouldn't say satisfying, because it wasn't like, oh, I knew it all along, but it was a satisfying ending to the book, so I recommend this one. Now, moving on, Gaiman also often did like really expansive like world exploration, like American Gods, Anansi Boys, stuff like that, where he really expanded upon the world and added these very unique aspects to the world. And so this one is a bit more out of a limb, but the Southern Reach trilogy. So Annihilation, Authority, and Acceptance. I love these books. I love these books. They are kind of that world building sort of thing. I love that you change a perspective so that you get, first you get just the idea of what's happening in this place, and then you get like a complete shift in tone, but it's also pretty creepy, but creepy in different ways. It's like workplace horror. It's like workplace horror, I gotta say. And it really does create this this new world that can be explored, and it has some very, very interesting characters that are very morally gray, morally like almost black. It's not like American Gods that kind of spans the entirety of the United States, but it does take a very specific area, and just has fun kind of screwing around with that and adding more interesting elements, and just how the world is changing. And I think, yes, and just kind of adding in the politics was a very cool way, because the first book it was like, okay, so it's going to be like this, and all of a sudden the second book was like just completely different. It covered a whole different part of the story, and I think that is really what made it kind of special, was that it was willing to just jump off in a completely different direction. Jeff Vandemeer he's a very talented author. So if you enjoyed kind of the world creation and the details of the world creation from Gaiman's books, I think that Jeff Vandemeer and the Southern Reach trilogy, although all his books are very good, but that one in particular, in the way that the world was explored and expanded upon through different points of view, was very good. Now, moving on to kind of getting into the fantasy aspect, because certainly, Carrion Comfort is more fantasy because vampires, and I guess horror is kind of fantasy, but Southern Reach is definitely like sci-fi. So going straight kind of really into the magic element, Declaration of the Rights of Magicians by HG Parry. It's very fun. I get people do compare it to Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell. However, I find that this one, the characters are a bit more, I don't know, spunky, so it goes faster for me. And I think that for a lot of modern fantasy, I think that it can get, once you kind of move into adult fantasy, it can get bogged down by like pages upon pages of just like, talking about a field, or, this is what the gardens looked like, or here's exposition for like a chapter. This one I think really kind of clips along a little better, and it's fun because it, you know, really does take historical characters, you know, such as you know, Maximilien Robespierre, gonna be the most famous one, and puts them in the story. It's just enjoyable. It's so for some historical fantasy, but it really just clips along in a fun way. I laughed while I was reading it, so I think that it kind of has that element of kind of Gaiman's wit. I think it's very fun. I mean, they call it a sprawling epic of revolution and dark magic. I mean, basically it's magic, but mix it in with the French Revolution. So if you like kind of Gaiman's wit and the world building as well, great book to replace that with. However, because Robespierre is kind of like my historical figure that that I defend. If you want to read Fatal Purity after that, it is nonfiction, but it kind of explains the actual real person of Maximilien Robespierre in a way that I found was really fair. So you can always supplement your reading with some nonfiction. So, moving on, I know that I'm still kind of keeping with the world creation here. So Guy Gavriel K, All the Seas in the World is very good. The characters are very compelling. There's some romance, so you know, if you liked there wasn't much romance, I would say, in Gaiman's book, but the relationships between the characters are very compelling, and so if you like books that, you know, obviously don't focus on the romance but still have like really compelling characters, you know, interacting with each other, this is a really good one. You can tell there are obviously ones that are way more well known than these books, but I'm kind of trying to stay away from them because you probably already know about them. So we want to get into another one that is, you know, it's also historical fantasy. It was actually recommended by Neil Gaiman, but Anno, Dracula. Why do I have so many vampire books? I don't know. But it's not actually the French Revolution, it's later on, it's Victorian England. And you also have like really fascinating characters. It's fun how they interact, and you know, I think just the world plus the characters, it really clips along, doesn't get itself bogged down, and it's just another one that I think that if you like kind of Gaiman's wit with his world building and stuff, this is going to be something that you'll enjoy. I know that it is historical fiction, which he didn't quite do that much. I mean, he did a lot, but this and A Declaration of the Rights of Magicians, I would say, definitely has like huge world building elements because they have to change, you know, history. But it also just flows really nicely because I think the characters work together and are interesting, that, you know, it doesn't end up just being very, I don't want to say boring, but at the same time, some modern fantasy is just very hard to get into, I think, because it has just such huge expanses of exposition and can be a little hard to get into. Anyway, so this one is not hard to get into. It's very short, and I would say this is definitely me leaning on the Neil Gaiman had kind of a witty streak about him. This is called Dreadful. It's by Caitlin Rozakis, and some call it cozy fantasy. I wouldn't call it cozy fantasy, but it's basically this evil wizard wakes up and he doesn't have any of his memories at all. So it's kind of an idea of, you know, him trying to play along with who he thinks he needs to be, but also the idea of, is he even the same person anymore? So it's like, what do I do with the princess trapped in the dungeon? Because I don't actually want her trapped in the dungeon, and yet if I untrap her from the dungeon, everyone's kind of gonna know that something's up. And also my boss will be very mad at me. So, it's humorous. It's humorous. It explores some ideas about identity, and really what makes us who we are. And then it just, plays with the tropes of like the evil wizard and all those. So if you like kind of witty, funny stuff, then Dreadful is probably going to be up your alley. Got my tower over here of the books I'm recommending. It's going to fall over at any point. Okay, so moving on to the next three. Okay, this one is young adult, and I'm going to recommend the first book, not necessarily the second, because I didn't enjoy the second, but it is also kind of a fun play with storytelling and kind of what storytelling does with our what storytelling means to us. So this is The Hazel Wood by Melissa Albert. I enjoyed the first book. I found it very creative, so I'm going to recommend the first book. You can read the second book if you want to, but I'm recommending the first one. It's fun. It's got some reveals. I think that I would put it kind of in the Coraline category, just with a protagonist that is a little older. I know that I'm not giving much of a summary of these books. I think that you can look that up yourself if you're interested in any of them. But this is definitely... I would put it kind of in the Coraline idea, with kind of alternate dimensions and alternate worlds, and having to deal with that mess. So this is young adult, but I think it's very enjoyable. And I'd recommend it if you enjoyed Coraline or The Graveyard Book, or really just enjoyed kind of the world building and the way that Gaiman would play with the ideas and how he would kind of break tropes. So, Hazelwood. Speaking of kind of breaking tropes, I feel like Gregory Maguire might be one of the most natural jumps. If you like Neil Gaiman, then you can just jump over to Gregory Maguire, and he's a little darker, I think, and mostly sticks to just straight fantasy, not urban fantasy or anything like that. Of course, most famously, he's wrote Wicked and all the books that go in that series, and those are definitely adult. That was when I saw the parents were just like not supervising their kids when they started reading like the Wicked novel, and was like, parents, please, there's explicit sex scenes in there. Please, I know that it's great your child is reading, but you need to police what they're reading. You really do. But this is actually a young adult book from Gregory Maguire with the Dickens, The Story of a Rogue Tooth Fairy. So you can guess that it's, just kind of I guess I wouldn't call it a fun little romp, but, it's taking the idea of a tooth fairy and basically setting him loose on the world, and it's just enjoyable. And if you like, kind of darker retellings of, stories, then you can get into Gregory Maguire's other books, where, not just Wicked, but where he, goes into other fairy tales and rewrites them. He always feels like the most natural jump, the second most natural jump for me, if you like Neil Gaiman. I don't know, they vibe for me. I don't know. Oh my god, my pile is gonna tear. Hasn't yet. Okay, this is another young adult novel. I'm really hoping for a sequel. I don't know. Maybe there has been, but I haven't looked it up yet. This is another one that feels kind of Coraline-esque, except not really. It's not as fantasy, but it has, I guess it's horror. I don't know. I was just going through my bookshelves and I was like, what gives me the Neil Gaiman vibe? And I think this one, it definitely has like a creepy element to it. And it's urban fantasy, definitely. So, but it has like, young protagonists. So if you kind of enjoyed that aspect of his works, then The Lost Causes of Bleak Creek by Rhett McLaughlin and Neal. It's fun. It's fun. It's a fun little romp. It's maybe the furthest from Gaiman that I have in this pile of mine. But I don't know. I think that if you enjoyed Gaiman, you'd probably enjoy this book. It does certainly have kind of a humorous element to it. The characters are enjoyable. The character elements are enjoyable, especially if you're able to laugh at like preteen drama, because there's definitely that in here, and I think you're meant to be able to laugh at it. If you're able to laugh at preteen drama and realize it for the ridiculousness that it is, which preteens aren't able to do, which is why preteens shouldn't read this book. But if you're able to look back on that area of your life and laugh at just kind of how ridiculous you were sometimes, then I think this book is just way more enjoyable when you're able to laugh at yourself. Last but certainly not least, because he's my favorite author, I actually packed up every other single one of his books, except for the one that I'm currently reading. So, Terry Pratchett. If you are outside the US, if you are from the UK, if you're watching this from the UK, you don't need me to recommend this to you. But in the US, Terry Pratchett's not actually that well known. So, of course, Pratchett was Gaiman's co-author for Good Omens. And when that book was written, Gaiman was really not well known. He rode Sir Terry's coattails in a little bit. And yeah, I hate that my favorite author has to be associated with such a scumbag. It's anyway, so obviously if you liked Good Omens, going over to the person who wrote probably more than half of it, thinking about their kind of distinct styles and like who had the idea for what, like there's some stuff that is just like, that was Sir Terry. I think going over to Discworld and checking out the Discworld books is a very natural jump. And I can make a video on how you can read Discworld, your different choices on how you can start. It can get a little complicated because there's so many books in them, but you can start chronologically, which maybe is not what I would do, because like the first books in the Discworld series are not the best ones, obviously, because he was just starting out and he became a very, very accomplished author, I think, over writing. When you write so many books, you're just going to become better, and so I think it's almost best to come back to those first ones after you already love the series, and that way you have characters. You might have read about the characters already, and then going back to them, you already like them, so, you're reading stuff. So, there are kind of different characters in the Discworld series. It's not always about the same character. There's kind of different routes that you can take. So you can read the books that all have to do with Sam Vimes, or with the witches, kind of Granny Weatherwax. You can read read The Amazing Mauricen's Educated Rodents, which was written for younger audiences, but it's still incredible. Because, just because it's written with the idea that younger audiences can also access it does not make it an inferior book. Like that's the thing, you know, is like people have this idea that just because it was written for young adults or for children means that it can't be like accessible for older people as well. No, I mean, it can still be an amazing story. So The Amazing Race and Educated Rodents, or you can start with The We Free Men and the Tiffany Aching series, which was also written for young adults. Or, you know, there's just a lot of places to start. And if you're interested, just, you know, drop a comment saying that please explain the Discworld series, tell me where I should start, because then I can give you my opinion. Because there's also some standalone novels that are a really good way to basically see if you like his style of writing. Anyway, those are my books. Can I do this? Can I do this? Can I do this? Can I do it? Can I do it? Can I do it? Can I do it? Oh! These are my recommendations for people who enjoyed Neil Gaiman's writing and just don't... who just kind of feel icky reading his stuff now. So, oops, and this one. If you just kind of feel icky reading his stuff now and want to find something that is similar, then these books kind of vibe for me with Gaiman's writing. So, again, my name is Kira. I hope you're doing well wherever and whenever you are. If you got to the end of this video, then I do have my Ko-fi link in the description. It's how I make money off of YouTube, because I don't make money off of YouTube. So if you like this video, or if you want to request a specific video, messaging me on Ko-fi is the best way of doing that. And again, I'll be back very soon with more Vox Machina table to screen, so that is coming. I've just been busy. So take care, and I will see you hopefully soon. Bye.